If nothing else, M.A.S.H for the Atari 2600 makes a hell of a lot more sense than the A-Team. Say what you will about the game's flaws, but at least I'm not sitting there wondering, what the fuck am I playing? Now admittedly M.A.S.H is no masterpiece, but I still think it's a fun little game. So anyway, let's get into it. M.A.S.H for the Atari 2600. Given the limited technology of the time, I think the graphics actually look quite good. There's some decent detail with the M.A.S.H tents and the helicopters and the tanks and the plane flying overhead. And they even managed to make the soldiers different colors, so that's a nice touch. However, I don't like the fact that they're almost as big as the choppers. Maybe they made them a little too detailed. And the North Koreans only have one tank? Talk about military budget cuts. Alright, so it's not the most accurate representation of the Korean War, but hey, at least they tried. The second scene with the human body is a lot less impressive, in my opinion. Jesus Christ, look at those fucking thighs! That trooper's been hitting the KFC a little too much. And gee, I never knew war wounds looked like miniature mazes. Seriously though, they could have made this human body look more like a human and less like a malformed pod person. The controls in the game are really simple. In the flying stage, you control your chopper with the joystick, and the sole button isn't used for anything. While again in the surgical stage, you use the joystick to control the forceps. To get the shrapnel in the bodies, you simply move the forceps over it. Once again, the lone button isn't used. As for gameplay, there's a number of different modes you can try. The main version I'll be focusing on is M.A.S.H 1. There are other versions to play though. For example, in one version you have to pick up parachuting medics that drop out of the plane. In yet another version you simply perform surgery on all the wounded soldiers. There are 8 versions in all, but they all have the same goal. In each one you compete against another M.A.S.H unit and you have to get 999 points before they do. The first player is the bluish-purple M.A.S.H unit, while the second player or the computer is the yellow one. In M.A.S.H 1, like the other games, you have to beat your opponent by getting more points than them. You accomplish this task in the first part by medevacing wounded soldiers from the battlefield to the M.A.S.H unit. You pick them up by simply flying over them. Your chopper can carry up to 5 wounded soldiers at a time, and once it's full, that little window will temporarily disappear. And you drop your casualties off by simply flying into the M.A.S.H unit. The maximum number of soldiers you and the computer can rescue is 25 each. Once you reach that number, you simply collect more soldiers to get more points. Unfortunately, the computer has an unfair advantage right from the start. You see that little tank down there? Well, that's the main enemy, and it will constantly try to shoot you and the other chopper down. If you're hit, you go down, and a truck has to push you off the battlefield. Also, you lose some of your wounded men, and you have less to deliver to the M.A.S.H unit. The big problem, though, is that getting shot down takes you out of the game temporarily. Meanwhile, your opponent can continue to save troops and rack up more points. What's really unfair, though, is that the enemy tank almost never shoots down the opposing chopper. Maybe once in a fucking blue moon the opposing chopper will get shot down, but you on the other hand? Oh no, you can get shot down over and over again. Worse yet, that yellow cocksucker can crash into you and knock you into enemy fire. Hey, I thought we were supposed to be on the same side, you fucking cunt! That son of a bitch will even knock you aside to get wounded troops! The funny thing, though, is that you can't die by crashing into the pine trees or the opposing chopper. The only thing that can stop you is the enemy tank shooting you down, and you have infinite lives, so you can keep on coming back over and over again. The only way that you can really lose is to have your opponent get to 999 points before you do. After a certain point, this scene stops and you switch to the second scene. Now you're in surgery and you have to take shrapnel out of old wounded thunder thighs. Do you remember the old board game Operation? You know, the one where you had to reach into the patient with forceps and take bones and organs out of him without touching the sides? And if you did touch the sides, his nose would turn red and he would go, "Eh!" Well, this is just a video game version of that. You're given a limited amount of time to go in and pull out as many pieces of shrapnel as you can. Each time you successfully take out a piece, you get more points. But if you fail, the game goes, "Eh!" and it says ferret face. Ferret face? What the fuck does that mean? As it turns out, Ferret Face is Major Burns, aka the asshole of the series. So they're basically saying you're incompetent. Yeah, well fuck you too, Jack. Anyway, if you hit the side of the patient at any time, you go back to the first screen. Or you go back once you run out of time. Actually, this part ain't too bad, it's just a little bit difficult to get used to the forceps at first. And sometimes getting the shrapnel out without touching the sides is damn near impossible because of its placement. Other than that, it's alright. The game alternates between these two scenes until someone gets 999 points. Once one side wins, the game just starts over again. Which kinda sucks because if you win, you don't even get a victory screen or anything. But then again, it is an Atari 2600 game, so what do you expect? A fucking marching brass band? The game does give a little bit of the M.A.S.H theme in the beginning, but that's it for music. The sound effects are just some beeps and boops, nothing to write home about. Compared to some Atari 2600 games, it's certainly superior. For example, it's much better than Alien. But compared to some others like say Crawl, it's not that great. However, if you're looking for a nice diversion for an hour or two, you could certainly do a whole lot worse than this game. So in conclusion, I think this game might actually be more enjoyable with 2 players, because in that case you're competing against a friend instead of the unfair computer. But even with a 1-player game, it's still fun, and the computer's not that bad, it's just annoying every now and then. This is Film and Stuff signing off. Thanks for watching. Hey, I thought we were supposed to be on the same side, you fucking cunt!